Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss book 62 in R.L. Stine's Goosebumps original series, Monster Blood 4. This is 118 pages long. Came out December 97. We finished. We did it. It took us 5 months, so a month and a half earlier than expected. I plowed through these over the summer because I knew I had a lot of Halloween stuff to do. So I started April 17th. It is currently September 17th that I actually finished this book. So 5 full months on the dot. Pretty cool. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about this book. We'll eventually do a top 10 in regards to my favorite of the 62 originals because we have some things to talk about. So this is the continuation of the Monster Blood franchise. My all-time favorite, number one spot. The 4 stories, the 4 books are just one large story, and I love it. I love it. We have magic, we have science, we have monster blood. We have things going on, right? What happens when you eat it? What happens when you use it? What happens with this particular monster blood? This monster blood is different monster blood. So the end of the 3rd book, we have a very small Evan being carried by his dog to his parents' room, saying, "Mom and Dad, I think we got a problem." And I questioned, is that just an aftermath of the concoction, the potion that Kermit had made for Evan in order to shrink him back to human size, but it continued to shrink him? Is it just a dream? It's not explained because we start out with Evan as a human boy sized a couple months later. I think it's winter because his mom's making him wear a sweater and it's cold outside, stuff like that. So we don't get an explanation. Was it an actual dream? Was it just the potion wearing off? Was it just the magical elixir wearing off? So it could go either way. We don't actually need an answer, and that's fine. Continuing on with the actual story, they changed Conan's address. Conan lived next door to Kermit. It's specifically mentioned in the 3rd book, Conan who lives next door to Kermit, Conan who's the bully in the 2nd book, Conan who's the bully in the 3rd book, who lives next door to Evan Ross's cousin Kermit. Next door. In this book, he lives in back of Kermit's house. The continuity is changed for reasons unknown, but backyard to backyard and backyard to backyard, it doesn't matter in regards to the plot because these blue blobby things continuously go from yard to yard to yard to yard. So it doesn't really matter where Conan lives, to be honest, in regards to, is it back of Kermit's house? Is it next to Kermit's house? But for continuity's sake, the book should have said next door to Kermit, not in back of Kermit. So, -1. Anyway, monster blood in this book. So Andy finds a new can of monster blood just discarded in a pile of junk behind her dad's lab, and her dad works is a scientist, and we actually get information. Her dad works at a lab in Atlanta, and her mom and her were picking him up, and she sees this can in this pile of junk in back of the lab where they were waiting for him, so she takes it home. Doesn't open it yet. She brings it over to Evan and Kermit's because Evan is now staying with Kermit and his mom for 10 days. His parents have to do some business, something. And so Andy is visiting, and this happens all within a day. So it's pretty much the afternoon into the afternoon of the next day, lunch to lunch. And that's one of my favorite tropes. What can happen in a day? It's just, I love it. 24 hours, what can happen? It's wonderful. So they're in the basement. They're doing experiments and stuff. Kermit introduces Evan, unbeknownst to himself, to some tarantulas, which Evan's unhappy about. They then inadvertently lose some mice in the backyard, some science mice in the backyard. Evan doesn't like hot stuff, but his aunt, continuously makes hot sauce infused things. So Andy shows them this can of monster blood. Conan's picking on Evan. Conan's, bruising his ear and stuff like that. And so Evan wants revenge now. And Andy's like, well, why don't we just use the monster blood? And Evan's like, no, we're not there yet. And then eventually, after he's hurt again, he's like, okay, let's do it. But how? So she has a blue can of monster blood. New blue can of monster blood. Nothing mentioning about expiration date like previous things. Again, we're talking about the very first monster blood. There was the activation aspect because of Sarah the cat's spell. So is all monster blood affected by the spell? Is certain monster blood affected by a spell? Is certain only affected by the expiration date? Is a combo of both things? But when they open this can, it's blue monster blood. It's not green monster blood. So the rules don't apply there, obviously. Or do they? No, they don't. Because of we get an explanation of this particular blue monster blood. So the goo, the monster blood, bubbles up as it normally does, as the green stuff does, and it escapes. But then it starts to grow features, and it starts to be this chipmunk-sized blue blobby thing that's very friendly and cute and very thirsty. So it's in the backyard, it sucks up some water from a hose, and then it explodes into two. And then they drink up water, and then those two explode into four, etc., etc., etc. Those four turn into eight. So it's a matter of what's going on. They can't keep mass popping and blue slime is going everywhere and they can't control them and the electric fence isn't working and Sheepdog, Kermit's dog, is not helping at all. So they're like, all right, well, what if we take the pot of hot sauce that Kermit's mom and Evan's aunt is doing? Will it, make them explode into dust because it's very, very hot? Doesn't work that way. So then eventually they all gather together. There's hundreds of them now after they put them in the basement overnight to try to keep them there. But the basement's bathroom is where Kermit decided to leave them, and there's a toilet, and there's a sink, and there's a shower. So there's functioning water mixed in with Kermit's hair growing formula. So now there's blue hairy blobs that are then turning mean. The larger explosion, the more that they are creating themselves, the meaner they get. So they're not cute and tiny and friendly anymore with smiles. They're mean in a large group. So they're biting everybody, and then eventually they're running through town and causing chaos and go to the playground, the same playground that Evan inadvertently apparently had destroyed in the first part, in the third book. So cops meet them at the school again, which is funny. Even though cops met them at the school for the softball game that Evan was trying to be a part of, not specifically a playground, but it's referenced that he was at a playground in the third book, and then the cover art of the playground of him destroying a playground, but he doesn't destroy a playground in the third book. He goes to the playground, he plays softball, but he doesn't destroy playground equipment. So then Evan, Andy, and Kermit are trying to figure out what to do, and then eventually the blue blobs start to attack each other and eat each other. And then eventually there's only one left, and then it just dies from lacerations and all these different things. And then once the cops come, they're like, well, we can't charge you with anything because there's no damage or anything. It's just don't litter. Stupid things. So everybody forgets it. They go home. And by the time they get home, they're met in the driveway with this guy in a lab coat and a full biohazard suit and goggles and everything. And he's like, oh, I was told, you guys might know where blue blobs are, but there's no blue blobs here. I'm the scientist who created this. It was a $50 million experiment, for 10 years worth of research, that it was designed for these creatures to fight underwater creatures if need be, that they could, expand and multiply very quickly. But then, there was problems, and that's why I got rid of it. And obviously you found the can, and I should have disposed of it properly, something like that. I think I'm just inferencing that part, but that's what he was alluding to. And then he kind of just leaves the empty can there, but it's not actually empty. There's still a little bit of blue blob left, but he still goes on his merry way. And then Conan gets the can again because Evan still wants revenge on Conan for being a butthead. So they give Conan the can, and Conan takes the can after it's, thrown to his yard inadvertently. And they originally played a trick on him saying it was candy, that he wasn't allowed to have their candy. So then the afternoon after lunch, he's screaming to them to come outside, and he says, I tasted that blue candy. It was slimy and sticky, but it was really good. It's got a problem. I can't stop drinking water, a la the blue monsters, the blue blobs. And then 3 other Conans come out. And he's like, yeah, we seem to be getting a lot more, and we're getting angrier. And they surround the 3 kids. Dun, 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 and then that's it. What happens next? So I like that this is different monster blood, that it was creature monster blood. It wasn't the standard warm, jiggly, green monster blood that was going to encase you and entrap you, and then if you ate it, you get bigger. It's not that type of monster blood. It's different monster blood. It's science experiment monster blood. So question remains, the scientist who spent 10 years on it, $50 million on the project, did he originally take just a standard can of monster blood that Sarah enchanted, which makes sense, amplified the science of it to create these blue blobby things out of the original formula of monster blood? That's what makes the most sense. So it's a hybrid. It's a science and mystical hybrid of Monster Blood. So, R.L. Stine's Goosebumps, book 62, Monster Blood 4, the final book in the original 62 book series. We're going to do our top 10 soon. Love this franchise, love this book series, love this 4-book, Monster Blood 1, 2, 3, and 4. Don't know when we're getting to a top 10. We're going to get to that at some point. I have a lot of stuff to do for Halloween, a lot of inside, a lot of outside to decorate, plus working 2 jobs. It's delightful. So much time. Sleep is important. I'm very proud of myself for finishing this before my goal, because my goal was before Halloween, thinking it would be like a day or 2 before Halloween. But I pushed myself so hard to read these books, especially over the summer. I was doing like a book every 2-3 days, and it was just, I did not think I could do that. And it was it's neat to see that I did it and that I pushed myself to do it. So let's see what my next challenge of things is. If it isn't more book stuff, I mean, I have a list of books to read, but we'll see. I want to get through the Halloween 2 weeks of decorating, and then we'll see what happens next. So little by little. No more planning 5 years from now. That's stupid. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. The sun came up today. I am awake today. So let's see what happens today, which leads to tomorrow. Let's keep on the present mindset. No more 5-10 years from now. Let's keep on the today-tomorrow mindset. We are in the present. The present is now. I awoke today. We're off to a great start. On to the next review. Mucho mahalo.